Hey you guys, welcome back. Um, and today's video is going to be a quick birthing video about how I gave birth, everything that happened. It's been a while since I actually talked about my pregnancy, but I figured that it's time. And I'm just sitting outside of my house recording this, so no like fancy, I'm not on my camera or anything like that. It's just like a really nice day. Took the baby out for a walk, and now I was like, you know what, this is the perfect time for me to record this video. So last time you guys heard from me, I was about 31 weeks, about to be 32 weeks, and I gave birth at 33 weeks. Okay, it was 33 weeks and about 5 days, but overall 33 weeks. Okay. What happened was that Sunday when I turned 33 weeks, I did my hair and I had a headache, right? So I'm talking to my baby father and we laying down and I'm like, babe, I got a headache. I have a headache. Like my headache hurt, like it hurt. I said, let me get some water. So I'm drinking water. The headache still doesn't go away. The headache still doesn't go away. So the next day I went to go get my IV iron because I was on the IV iron, and I went to go get my 30-minute dose, and they said that one of the side effects is that you might have headaches, and if that continues, to drink a lot of water. So I took my dose of the IV iron, and I had a headache. Like, it was a nonstop headache. From that Sunday to that Monday, I still had a headache. Tuesday came, I still had a headache. Wednesday came, I still had a headache. Thursday came, and I still had a headache. And I said, something is wrong. I said, I need to go to the doctor, figure out what's wrong. So mind you, I was drinking a lot of water, taking like headache medicine and all of that. But like, I just still had a headache and it would not go away. So I called my doctor and it was like, hey, we have a slot for you. Just come in real quick and we're just going to take your blood pressure just to see how everything is going with you, so on and so forth. So I get to the doctor. Mind you, I'm at work when all of this is happening, right? I text my senior manager and I'm like, hey, I have an emergency. I have to go to the doctor's. So I get to the doctor's and they take my blood pressure. My blood pressure was 146 over 105, right? So obviously that's extremely horrible. After the whole blood pressure thing, they said, hey, we need for you to go to, hold on, there's a truck driving by. So after they took my blood pressure, they're like, hey, we need for you to go to the hospital as soon as possible. We just want to make sure that you don't have preeclampsia, so on and so forth. So I'm like, okay. They was like, before you do that, let us check the protein in your urine. They checked the protein in my urine, and they didn't even like say good or bad. Their reaction was just like, okay, you need to go to the hospital as soon as possible. They gave me a jug to do the 24-hour urine test, and basically what that is me peeing in a jar over the period of 24 hours and then testing it. That'll get an accurate amount of how much protein I had in my urine. So I'm driving. They're like, don't go anywhere else, just go straight to the hospital. We're calling them, making sure that they have a room prepped for you, so on and so forth. Luckily, the day before, I went to the laundromat and I actually washed all of my stuff, washed the baby stuff, and I packed my hospital bag. So I'm like, you know what? I didn't listen to them. Of course, I came home and got like my things, because and there's a specific reason why I did that, because when they called the hospital and let them know that I was coming, the hospital called me to do like my registration, and they were like, bring everything we need because we don't know how long you're gonna be here. That was on a Thursday. They said, bring everything you need. We don't know how long you're gonna be here. So I go home. I get my main reason for going home was to get my hospital registration papers, like everything that they have you fill out beforehand. I came home, I got my my bag, I got my charger. I forgot all the registration papers. Like, I was just like out of it. I'm calling my baby father. I'm calling him. He's not answering. I knew that he was asleep because he works overnight. So I knew that he was asleep. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I knew that this was going to happen. So I call his mom and I'm like, they told me to go to the I'm in tears at this point. I'm like, they told me to go to the hospital. They told me to go to the hospital. So she goes and she knocks on his door. She's like, wake up. She's about to have the baby. She's about to have the baby. He was like, who? Oh my goodness. I said, what? I was just like I had so much like emotions going through me. I didn't even know how to react. I said, what? So finally I get to the hospital. Of course, this is all during COVID. I get to the hospital, they asked me the COVID guidelines. At this point I have to take a COVID test, which the COVID test wasn't that bad. They just like swabbed my nose. Everything came back negative. And I'm sitting there and they're taking my blood pressure. I'm hooked up to all of these machines and they're checking my blood pressure. And at this point, they're checking my blood pressure every 30 minutes, right? So every 30 minutes, I'm hooked up to the machine where and it's like automatically taking my blood pressure. Also, there was so much that went on, and I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything. They were doing like kidney and liver tests for me, so on and so forth. So at that time when they were taking those tests, my kidney was basically telling my body that something was wrong, right? So basically my kidney was like failing at that point. And they're taking blood work for me, checking my anemia, my iron, making sure all of that is good. And they're doing like a couple of different things for me at this point. I had some wonderful nurses. The nurses were extremely nice. With the 24-hour urine test, I had to basically count how much I peed, the time that I peed, so on and so forth. I'm hooked up to all the IVs, so they're getting medicine in me. I'm sorry, they're getting fluids in me, so on and so forth. I didn't eat that whole day. So the next day, I stay there overnight, of course. They're monitoring me. They have me hooked up to the blood pressure machine. They have me hooked up to the contraction machine. And at this point, I'm having contractions, but I can't feel them. So they're like basically non-existent. I didn't feel anything at all with the contractions. And what happened was, the next day came. I still didn't eat nothing. And they're like, hey, everything is looking good. It was confirmed that I had preeclampsia. They said that the average person's urine, protein in the urine is about 100, and mine was about 1,000. So it was confirmed that I had preeclampsia. They said that we're just going to keep monitoring you for the day. They said if everything goes well, you'll be delivering at 37 weeks. If not, we're gonna have to deliver you at 34 weeks the latest. So that was gonna be that Sunday, right? They said that we would end up having to deliver you on that day. So they gave me a couple of steroid shots. They gave it to me in my booty. They were literally a pain in my ass. So they gave me the steroid shots in my booty, and what that basically did, that helped to develop the baby's lungs. And it helped it to develop it quicker, so just in case I did have to deliver early, that the baby's lungs were fully developed. So that was Thursday going into that Friday. So Friday came and they said, hey, we have some good news. They said that you might get delivered. They were basically like that. You're gonna be getting sent home around like 7:30, give or take. So at this point, my boyfriend, my baby father, he ended up leaving, and because he had to be to work. So he left maybe around like 5 o'clock because he has to be to work at 6. And 6 o'clock came, I'm still in the hospital. 7 o'clock came, I'm still in the hospital. 7:30 came, I'm still in the hospital. Mind you, I didn't eat Thursday, and I didn't eat that Friday yet. So they come into the room and they're like, hey, we have some good news for you and we have some bad news for you. They said the good news is that you can eat now. The bad news is we're going to keep you another night just to monitor your blood pressure and monitor the baby to make sure that everything's okay. So at this point, I'm in tears. I'm crying. I'm just like, hey, I want to go home. I want to go home. I'm in tears at this point, right? I'm in tears at this point, right? So they monitor me overnight. First, I was in the labor and delivery room. Then they put me over to mommy and me because they were just monitoring me. So that night, I went over to mommy and me. And they're looking over me overnight, so on and so forth. Saturday morning came, and when Saturday morning came, they said, hey, everything overnight went perfect. We just want to monitor you a little bit in the morning for about 30 to 45 minutes just to make sure that everything with you and the baby is okay. So again, they hooked me up to the contraction machine, and they hooked me up to the blood pressure machine. And I was supposed to go home that morning. That was the same day as my maternity shoot. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So that morning, I'm sitting there, and they hooked me up to all of the machines. And when they hooked me up to the machines, I can see whether or not I'm having contractions because they have me hooked up to the contraction machine. I'm not having any contractions. My blood pressure is looking good, but I have a pain on my right side of my stomach. It felt like my insides were on fire. It felt like my insides was burning. It was just like my insides was on fire. And I could take pain, and I could like when it came to my son, like I could take pain. So what happened was, after the 30 to 45 minutes, I'm having all of this pain still. So as I'm having the pain, I'm sitting here, and the nurse is like, hey, we're gonna get ready to go home. And I'm like, yay, I'm trying to fight through it. So they leave, and I try to get myself ready to go home. Oh, my baby's waking up. I try to get myself ready to go home. And as I'm sitting here and I'm getting myself ready to go home, what happens is I just couldn't take it anymore. My insides were so on fire that I ended up taking off all of my clothes. Like, I took off every single piece of article of clothing that I had on because I was just that hot. I was just that burning up, and I was just laid out on the floor. So the nurse came in, and she's like, hey, what happened? Like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm in pain. I'm in a lot of pain. My right side only is in pain. They said, all right, we're going to give you some pain medicine. It should kick in about 5 minutes, right? So they give me the medicine, and maybe like 30 minutes pass by, and I'm still in pain. Within those 30 minutes, I end up throwing up. I'm vomiting. I'm throwing up straight acid. It's just all clear yellow liquid just coming out of my body. And they called the doctor, and they called the high risk doctor, and they're like, the doctor looks at me, and she's like, hey, we have some good news. And they was like, okay, we have not even good news. They was like, hey, we have some news for you. You're gonna have this baby, and you need to be induced. What you're having right now is called severe preeclampsia, and what it basically is your liver is about to explode, right? So my liver was pumping so much blood that it was about to explode. So what happens is I call my boyfriend at this point and I'm like, I need you right now. They're about to induce me. He was in a chair about to get a haircut. So he's getting a haircut, and he looks at the barber, and he's like, hey, you need to speed this up. I'm about to have a baby. So I called him maybe around like 11 o'clock. I called him. So mind you, I'm still in the mommy and me section, so they have to move me back over to labor and delivery, so they have to make sure that they have a room, so on and so forth. And at this point, I'm still in pain. I'm throwing up every maybe like 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. Every 2 to 3 minutes, I'm throwing up. So then what ends up happening is we get over to mommy and me. My boyfriend arrives, and we're talking to the doctors. We have my doctor on the line, and we have the high risk doctor in the room, and they're like, hey, you have a couple of different options. The first option is for you to be induced, but the thing about you being induced is that we don't know how long you're going to be in labor for, and you're in a lot of pain. They said, and you're in a lot of pain. We already gave you the pain medicine, and you're still in pain, so we don't know if you won't make it. Basically, we don't know if you're going to make it, but it's a high possibility that you won't make it. The second option is for you to get a C-section. So I look at my boyfriend, and I'm like, hey, what do you want to do? And he's like, whatever's best for you and the baby. So at this point, I look at the high risk doctor, and I'm like, I look at the high risk doctor, and I'm like, hey, what's gonna be the best option for me and the baby? And they're like, for you to have a C-section. So that was at 12:10, and I know for sure because we recorded a video on my phone right after it happened. And hey, what's going on, huh? I'm right here. And so we what? And I know it was around like 12:10 exactly because I recorded a video on my phone. And I'll show you guys that video at the end, or maybe like right now. I don't know. So it's official. About to have my baby. Definitely not how I planned it, but I'm taking whatever God has given me at this point. Thankful. Definitely thankful.
Thinking that it's supposed to like cover it though.
No, it's just gotta cover the bottom. You look cute.
What's this?
Another mask to put on top of the mask.
That's another mask put on top of this? You recording me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm about to go in there. Again. I'm about to go in there.
Yeah. You look like one of those hazard people. One of those hazard people. You look good. Shut the fuck up.
You gotta practice. Listen, when you go in there, you gonna have this baby, okay?
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
Don't be lying.
I don't got a choice. They gotta stick me with that needle. I don't got a choice.
They're trying to suffocate.
No, baby.
What, they want you to tie it?
Yeah.
Hospital.
At 12:10, we decided for me to have a C-section, and my son was born at 12:57. I believe it was 12:57. My son was, I think it was 12:57. That's crazy that I'm forgetting already. He was born at 12:57 p.m. He came in at 4 pounds and 6 ounces. He was 45 centimeters. And at that point, I was just like super excited. I remember when they gave me the epidural definitely does hurt the back of my back. We gave birth to a handsome baby boy. So I have a baby boy, and he is strictly breastfeeding. So they gave him formula when he first came out because obviously I was in recovery. And I was drugged up. Oh my goodness. The drugs that they give you is so strong that I was just like, oh my goodness, like what the heck is going on? And luckily I've been able to pump. So my son is strictly breastfed. One thing that I could also say for sure is that I'm just thankful to be here today. I know a lot of people always say, hey, you know, when I was pregnant, I almost died. When I was pregnant and was given delivery, that I almost died. But literally, I almost died. And what I can say is go based off of your gut instinct. Like, I was having those headaches and I knew something wasn't right. And if I didn't go into the hospital, when I did go into the hospital, who knows where I'll be, who knows where my son would be. I'm just definitely thankful. I have a beautiful baby boy. He is so handsome. He's growing like a pro, super fat and chunky. And I'm just like definitely in love. I wouldn't change anything that I went through for a reason. I wouldn't change anything that I went through for the world, and I know that everything that I went through was for a reason. It was just like so super amazing, and I'm so super excited to have my baby boy. What I can tell you is that if you do have any symptoms or you are feeling any type of way, like, go based off of your gut instincts. You never know what could happen. So that is basically my giving birth at 33 weeks with preeclampsia. And what I ended up having was also called HELLP syndrome. So that was just my little intake about pregnancy and everything. So all right, my baby's crying, you guys. I gotta go. Adios.